Hello and welcome to Inspired Earth, everybody. We're going to be talking about some outer space criminology and forensics. They're trying to figure out how to solve murders out in space and what to do with evidence of crimes in space. Then we're going to talk about some dinosaurs and, of course, we have alternative energies to talk about. A couple of those. One's from a 13-year-old, so that's pretty interesting. And then we have 3 rescue-type stories at the end. Everybody loves those. They're really hard to find, so if you guys find those, please send them to me, and that would be much appreciated. We're going to start off here with CSI Space Station. Scientists are investigating a blood splatter in microgravity, and the work could be useful for accident reconstruction or solving space crimes. Things in microgravity work differently. Flames are round, your bones lose density, and the calluses on your feet disappear. Liquids also behave weirdly, and a group of forensic scientists wondered how bloodstain patterns would be affected in reduced gravity, so they took to flight to find out. And in a first of its kind experiment, scientists sought to study bloodstain patterns in microgravity. Researchers from Staffordshire University and University of Hull carried out a series of experiments on a zero-gravity corporation-modified Boeing 727 parabolic aircraft. Boy, they're brave going into space in a Boeing, considering all the stuff that's been going on with Boeing. People's doors falling off, their tires are falling off, their people falling off. But why is this research essential? These types of tests may aid in investigating extraterrestrial crimes and accidents that could happen in a space shuttle or space station. This emerging new field is known as astroforensics. Studying bloodstain patterns can provide valuable reconstructive information about a crime or accident. However, little is known about how liquid blood behaves in altered gravity environment, said Zach Kowalski, crime scene investigator in Atlanta. This is an area of study that, while novel, has implications for forensic investigation in space. Forensic analysis on research craft. The space environment was simulated aboard this parabolic research aircraft. This high-tech jet encounters short periods of less gravity due to its up and down flight path. In the experiments, a combination of 40% glycerin and 60% red food coloring was used to mimic the density and viscosity of human blood. Blood droplets were ejected from a hydraulic syringe toward a target like paper. The blood drops were particularly released when the aircraft witnessed a gravity drop between 0.00 and 0.05 Gs. So 100th of a G. Or 500th of a G. As per the release, these blood stains were then used to determine the impact angle. With the lack of gravitational influence, surface tension and cohesion of blood droplets are amplified. What this means is that blood in space has a higher tendency to stick to surfaces until a greater force causes detachment. Researchers reconstructed the angle of impact from bloodstains, indicating that in microgravity, blood droplets spread at a slower rate and have distinctive forms and sizes not observed on Earth. On Earth, gravity and air drag have noticeable influence on skewing the calculated angle. The initial hypothesis was that because of the absence of gravity, certain mathematical calculations could be more accurate. However, the amplified effect of surface tension became a predominant factor that caused the calculation to have greater variance even in the absence of gravity. And NASA's Artemis program intends to return humans to the moon and establish a long-term presence there. Furthermore, space travel has been gaining momentum, and several not pirates, not yet at least, we're probably pretty close, with several private ventures allowing individuals to experience microgravity That is why scientists have been looking at how forensic science may have been applied to places beyond Earth. The inherent limitations of low gravity in space provides additional hurdles to understanding the behavior of evidence beyond Earth. The team notes that in the next years there may be a need to create forensic science approaches to comprehend the consequences of crimes in space better. Zach added, "We find ourselves in a new era of forensic science. Just as the mid-19th century asked the question of what a bloodstain meant in relation to a cause, we are once again at the beginning of new questions that tie in how new environments influence forensic scientists." Astroforensics is a novel subdiscipline that is in its infancy. Broadening the understanding of all forensic sciences in non-terrestrial environments is critical as we expand into a spacefaring species. Research is needed, research that spans across all disciplines. And he had a different line here, Kowalski. Forensic science is more than just trying to solve crimes. It is additionally has a role in accident reconstruction or failure analysis. With this concept, consider how various forensic disciplines could be utilized in a critical accident on board a space station or shuttle. So we're going to move on to Alaska dinosaur track reveals a lush, wet environment. This one was really, really cool. A large find of dinosaur tracks and fossilized plants and tree stumps in far northwestern Alaska provides new information about the climate and movement of animals near the time when they began traveling between the Asian and North American continents roughly 100 million years ago. We've had projects for the last 20 years in Alaska trying to integrate sedimentology, dinosaur paleontology, and paleoclimatic indicators. We've done work in all three other formations in Denali on the north slope and in the southwest Alaska, and they're about 70 million years old. This new one is a new formation that's about 90 to 100 million years old. Ferrillo said that the additional age is notable. What's interested us about looking at the rocks of this age is that this is roughly the time that people think of as the beginning of the Bering Land Bridge, the connection between Asia and North America. We wanted to know who was using it and how they were using it and what the conditions were like. The mid-Cretaceous was the hottest point in the Cretaceous, a sedimentologist and fossil soil specialist said. The Nanushk Formation gives us a snapshot of what a high-altitude ecosystem looks like on a warmer Earth. The Nanushk Formation is an outcropped layer of sedimentary rock 800 to 5,000 feet thick across the central and western North Slope. It dates to roughly 94 to 113 million years ago in the mid-Cretaceous period, which is when the Bering Land Bridge began, they believe. The fieldwork occurred in 2015 to 2017 and centered on Coke Basin, a circular geological feature at the Nanushuk Formation. The basin is in the Delong Mountain foothills along the Kuparuk River, about 60 miles south of Point Ley and 20 miles inland from the Chukchi Sea. In the area, Fiorillo and McCarthy found approximately 75 fossil tracks and other indicators attributed to dinosaurs living in a ravine or delta-like setting. That's really interesting that all of these dinosaurs were all in this one little delta-type area. This place was just crazy rich with dinosaur footprints. One site stands out. We were at a spot where we eventually realized that for at least 400 yards we were walking on an ancient landscape. One that the landscape we found large upright trees with little trees in between and leaves on the ground. We had tracks on the ground and fossilized feces. They found numerous fossilized tree stumps, some 2 feet in diameter. It was like we were walking through the woods of millions of years ago. The Nanush Formation encompasses rock of marine and non-marine characteristics and composition, but the author's research focuses primarily on the non-marine sediments exposed along the upper Kookaburra River, however you pronounce that. One of the things we did in our paper was look at the relative frequencies of the different kinds of dinosaurs. What was interesting to us was that the bipedal plant eaters were clearly the most abundant. Two-legged plant eaters accounted for 59% of the total tracks discovered, four-legged plant eaters encountered 17%, and birds accounting for 15%, and non-avian, mostly carnivorous bipedal dinosaurs at 9%. One of the things that was interesting is the relative frequency of bird tracks. The authors point out that nearly half of North America's shorebirds breed in the warm months of today's Arctic. That suggests that the high number of fossil bird tracks along the Kookaburra River indicates that the warm paleoclimate was a similar driver for Cretaceous period birds. It was a wet and warm place. A carbon isotope analysis of wood samples led to the determination that the region received about 70 inches of precipitation annually. This record of increased precipitation during the mid-Cretaceous era provides new data that supports global precipitation patterns associated with the Cretaceous thermal maximum. That makes sense because the hotter the atmosphere is, the more water can be absorbed and stored in the atmosphere, and the more energy that would be available too. So there would be more storms and more water, which is exactly what we're seeing with global warming. That's basically like the trend that Art Bell talked about and the quickening, and what all of our math is indicating is that the more the temperature goes up, the more water in the atmosphere and the more energy in the atmosphere, and it just makes more storms. So that's what they were experiencing there. Was Alaska had the equivalent of modern day Miami. It's going to say here in a second. I thought we were already there, but oops, skipped a little bit ahead. The Cretaceous thermal maximum was a long-term trend approximately 90 million years ago, in which average global temperatures were significantly higher than those of today. The temperature was so much warmer than it is today, and that's possibly more interesting, is that it rained a lot. The samples we analyzed indicate it was roughly equivalent to modern-day Miami. That's pretty substantial. Of one of the notes is that Alaska site investigated by Varillo and McCarthy was about 10 to 15 degrees latitude farther north in the mid-Cretaceous than it is today. So it was even further north. That's pretty interesting. McCarthy's role as a fossil soils expert was to analyze old rocks and sediments to interpret the type of environment that existed at the time. We can say here that it's a river channel, it's a flood deposit, it's a levee, and there's a floodplain, and here's a swamp. And so if we're able to find tracks in that section, then you can sometimes say that a group of dinosaurs seem to have really liked being here as opposed to there. Farillo said that the site indicates there's much more work to be done. This puts a new dot on the map and tells us that there's a lot here, and it fits into the bigger picture. The bigger picture is we're trying to get a better resolution on what life was like in high latitudes at the time of the dinosaurs were roaming around. And they have some pictures here of, this is one of the trees, which it really just looks like rocks. But I mean, it's turned to stone. But the tree, so I mean, it is a rock, but you can see that it's a tree because you can see kind of like the banding of it growing and stuff, and that it's not like the rocks next to it. Like the rocks next to it's like shale or something really loose, and this is really put together like a tree trunk. It's a tree trunk. And they have some more pictures here. This is a picture of long carbonaceous root traces that splay the sandstone. That was kind of a lot to say, but the picture is It's kind of like if you've seen fossils of fish or something, you see their outline. Well, this is like the outline of roots. You can see these big, huge roots, and they were turned to stone, and you can still see them, which is pretty cool. So I had to show those pictures and describe them a little bit. This one's really quick, but it's from 13 hours ago from Axios, which they put out some pretty good stuff. But it says, your brain on junk food. New research shows it's not just harming your body. So instead, most people focus on dieting, on like eliminating foods. I'm not going to say to eliminate anything. Just try to eat more healthy foods and like vegetables and stuff like that. Most people focus on eliminating foods with diets. That's not really like the most productive way about going about things. You should maybe try to add healthy foods instead of just focusing on taking away unhealthy foods. Because the more healthy foods you eat, the more it just becomes easier. People think about it in like the completely opposite way. Like I said, they think about it as eliminating food instead of adding food. A diet should be an addition to your diet, not detracting from it. Because nobody sticks to those, we'll call it like a negative diet instead of a positive diet. Nobody sticks to the negative diets, hardly at all. I mean, some people need them, like, but it's always temporary. What do they do afterwards? They have to start eating vegetables and like being healthy and stuff. It's only like if you watch the My 500-Pound Life or whatever, they have to cut out a lot of food, like, to survive. To be able to live to do the surgery, they have to stop eating 20 pizzas a day. But they end up having to add more healthy foods. Anyways, you get what I'm saying. But we know how ultra-processed foods like chips and sugary cereals affect our bodies. New research is digging into how junk food hits our brains. Why does it matter? Beyond elevating risks of obesity, diabetes, and heart disease, heavily processed foods can harm our mental health, mess with sleep, and even be addictive like alcohol or nicotine. Some scientists are proposing new mental health condition called ultra-processed food use disorder, which I'm not super big into pathologizing things, but this could be like legitimately a disorder. I think sometimes we are too quickly to make things a disorder, but this probably fits that definition pretty well. So, state of play. People who consistently eat high-fat, high-sugar snacks demonstrate higher activity in the parts of the brain that creates dopamine, according to a study published in Cell Metabolism. In just 8 weeks, participants' brains started to reward them for indulging in junk food. Their desire for low-fat foods started to disappear. Researchers have discovered other troubling effects. In one study, some participants were given sugary processed breakfast to start their day. Others were given a healthier meal. Those who had junk food for breakfast didn't perform as well on learning and memory tests. I feel like we've known that forever. I mean, not forever, but I got told that as a kid. So, like, are we really just discovering this stuff? But are we going to listen? That's the question. Because even though we're telling our kids this stuff, they don't internalize it the way that they should. I don't think. That if we all realized that our food was harming our brains, we would probably make different decisions. Similarly to the whole Roman Empire being poisoned by their water type of thing that we've talked about before. But to finish this off, it says a junk food forward diet is likely to result in gut microbiome that is less diverse and fewer types of bacteria, which work together to boost immune function and regulate stress. So it's going to affect the bacteria in your intestines and stomach, which we're finding out affects our brain and immune function, just like it said, and regulates your stress. So it just throws off your whole body. So try to eat some vegetables and stuff, or something healthy, at least fresh. Try to eat some fresh stuff that's not super processed. I think that's like one of the biggest keys here, is moving towards more fresh stuff, which is difficult because the logistics of our time is getting more and more uh, difficult to do that, with food prices and whatnot. But it's still important to try to find fresh stuff while you can for your brain's health. And just, I mean, if you can't, don't stress about it that much because you can't do anything about it. But when you do have access to fresh foods, try to take advantage of it. But amazing discovery as man finds huge bone sticking out of the ground. It happened one morning like any other, during any ordinary walk. Damien Boschetto, a 25-year-old amateur paleontologist, made a spectacular discovery while walking his dog in a forest in southern France last year. Boschetto stumbled upon a massive bone sticking out of the ground near a cliff edge, which turned out to be the 32.8-foot fossil of a titanosaur skeleton, a long-necked sauropod that was still thriving around the end of the Cretaceous period around 66 million years ago. It happened one morning like any other, during an ordinary walk. While walking the dog, a landslide on the edge of a cliff exposed the bones of various skeletons. The stunning find astonished researchers, particularly thanks to its almost original anatomical position. From a museography point of view, it will make it possible to present the general public animals almost complete in anatomical position, which is something great. The most exciting thing was to realize that we had at least one anatomically connected animal, and it was a titanosaur, a long-necked dinosaur. The surrounding area where Boschetto had made the discovery is what experts refer to as a bone bed, or a spot that's teeming with animal bones and fossils. Experts also dug up the remains of Rabidodon, a plant-eating dinosaur, and carnivores like theropods in the same area. Sauropods, like the 70% intact titanosaur discovered by Boschetto, were some of the largest dinosaurs of their time, towards the end of the Cretaceous period. Their total length, head to tail, could reach 85 feet. While other titanosaur remains have been found in other parts of Europe, this particular specimen is special thanks to its largely intact state, including connective tissues. Experts are still trying to determine its exact species. So it still had like nerves and ligaments attached to it. That's pretty gnarly. That's 66 million years for that to stay connected. That's very lucky to be able to find something like that. Then we have the world's largest aircraft just flew with a real payload. Built and flown by Stratolaunch, the massive ROC aircraft took off from Mojave Air and Spaceport in California on Saturday. The airplane flew out over the Pacific Ocean, where it deployed the Talon-A vehicle, which looks something like a mini space shuttle. This marked the first time this gargantuan airplane released an honest-to-goodness payload, the first Talon-A vehicle, TA-1, which is intended to fly at hypersonic speed. During the flight, the TA-1 didn't create hypersonic velocity, which begins at Mach 5 or 5 times greater the speed of sound. While I can't share the specific altitude and speed TA-1 reached due to proprietary agreements with our customers, we are pleased to share that in the addition to meeting all primary and customer objectives of the flight, we reached hypersonic speeds approaching Mach 5 and collected a great amount of data and incredible value to our customers. In essence, the TA-1 vehicle is a pathfinder for subsequent versions of the vehicle, which will be both reusable and capable of reaching hypersonic speeds. And the design of the vehicle has evolved. Its wingspan grew to 117 meters, nearly double the size of a Boeing 747 aircraft. It far exceeds the wingspan of the Spruce Goose, built by Howard Hughes in 1940, which had a wingspan of 97 meters. The ROC aircraft was so large that it seemed impractical to fly. But they've done it. And that thing would be able to really help with disaster aid. Or anything like that. I'm sure they have their own types of plans, though. And Professor wants to safeguard nuclear energy so New York City won't become the next lost city of Atlantis. A SUNY professor believes he discovered a way to make nuclear energy immensely safer and could prevent Manhattan from becoming the next lost city of Atlantis. Matthew Zedigas, 41, has spent the last 2 years toiling in a laboratory deep underneath the University Albany campus, blasting bits of lithium with ion beams to test the nature of its fission reactions. The physics professor discovered that lithium, commonly used in cell phone batteries, cars, and other technologies, only becomes fissionable when it's hit by ions and stabilizes when the beam stops. This concept is to have fission that you can turn on and off. That's what really creates the incredible safety factor and makes it completely different from standard nuclear power. He continued, "You cannot make a dangerous explosion. You cannot make it melt down. Even if you tried, it has an intrinsic safety." Kind of sounded like a rhyme there, like a Dr. Seuss rhyme. I was trying to think of who it was. That sounded like Dr. Seuss for a little bit. Nuclear power plants operate using fission, a chain reaction in which atoms split and release energy. If controlled, fission creates heat that moves through water through electricity generating turbines. However, the intrinsic risk of uranium fission happens when control is lost, effectively creating a haywire atomic weapon. All of our nuclear power plants were created after the Manhattan Project and after the bomb. So the only way we knew how to make nuclear energy was to take the same technology and the same ideas, Zedigas said, explaining that uranium has remained the standard fuel in nuclear power plants throughout history. With my idea, you can't make a bomb. You can make it a nice power plant. I thought we were about to go back into the Dr. Seuss rhyme. But you can't force it to have a runaway chain reaction. So you can't make it turn into a bomb. There's no way to, because they said it's like a laser. You just hit it with a stream of ions and it turns on and off. Zedigas' model could also potentially negate the dangers of uranium waste created from standard nuclear reactors. Unlike uranium, which can take almost 1 billion years to no longer be radioactive, fission lithium takes a matter of hours, worst case days or weeks, to become safe. Though only tested on small samples, Zedigas' lithium-based model scales as he expects it would have the potential to replace uranium in reactors across the world, and eliminate the public safety fears that have prevented clean energy sources from powering the entire planet. Well, that clean energy, because we've gone through like almost a dozen on this show alone. The beauty of nuclear power. Any nuclear power, my idea, as well as traditional uranium-based plants, is that they can be built with nearly zero carbon footprint and will run with nearly zero CO2 output. Zedigas believes that a climate change cataclysm has already begun and estimated that the New York City will be underwater by 2100 if nothing is done to prevent it. However, if successful, his lithium-based nuclear energy could have enormous impact on keeping future generations safe. I totally agree with him. The climate change cataclysm has already begun. Every single scientist and mathematical prediction and model is all saying it over and over and over in all these different ways, but we just continue on full stream ahead for the dollar, for the touchdown, and who knows where we're going to be at the end of it. But there's some people that are waking up, and there's this guy right here who's like, hey, we can save everybody with this one technology. So I hope that he gets picked up by somebody really good. I'll put it very bluntly. Someone sitting in New York may not end up in underwater anymore in 50 years if his idea succeeds, he explained. So I would say that's a pretty big impact, to not have Manhattan become the next lost city of Atlantis. The idea is sustainable on multiple levels. Lithium fuel could be harvested from the tons and tons of batteries we use regularly, so we could use it for our battery waste. That's amazing. That's great. While reactors can be retrofitted into existing power plants. An associate professor at the University of Albany, Zedeikis focused on finding dark matter in the cosmos before he stumbled on his lithium fusion idea. So it was just serendipity that he found this. It was by accident. Dark matter hunters spend their time creating neutrons to throw at detectors, something the University of Albany's subterranean particle accelerator is uniquely equipped for. And during such experimentation with his team, Zedeikis struck on the lithium idea. The process remains in its early stages. Zedeikis had a patent pending and is looking for funding to expand the size of experiments, which he will then write up into a paper for peer review and look for further expansion. I've gotten proposal for a couple $1 million, but I'll be happy to take anything. I'm not claiming any new physics. I'm not saying I've got some crackpot 0-point energy or something magical that doesn't actually exist. I'm doing bread and butter, nuclear fission that's been understood for many decades. If we were all to go perfectly, Zedeikis estimates that his lithium reactors could be up and running within 10 years. I'm not reinventing the wheel, he said. My concept is revolutionary, but at the same time, it's not too revolutionary, if that makes sense. You would not want to be too revolutionary. God bless you if you do that. But one thing that I thought was interesting was him saying that they're not doing anything new with the understanding of physics. So how could you translate that? Something that I think you guys might have heard before. Looking at stuff right in front of us with a new perspective. This stuff was right in front of us. We just had to find a new way to look at it. And just one little tiny thing changed it all. And it was all right in front of us the whole time. We just didn't know how to see it. And similarly, we have 13-year-old has eureka moment when science project that suggests Archimedes' invention was plausible. And it's always the youth that does this as well. And I had a breakthrough earlier today that I'm just going to share, that the youth have the most to play here. They have the most potential, and they have the least to lose. The older you get, the more you have on the line, so you don't want to try anything new because you're too scared. Well, the kids, they see the future for what it is, and they don't have anything to lose. So that is why our institutions and our leaders are so hard and negative on the youth. And there's a mental assault going on the youth right now. And the reason for that is because they have the most potential and the most ability. It's just all in their hands. It's always the kids that solve this stuff. And that's why we're attacking their minds. Our society and our institutions are attacking children's minds. And I don't even mean that in the whole identity politics stuff. Just throw that out the window. That is not even what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about just way past that. Telling kids that they can't do anything whenever it's the exact opposite. They can do way more. They have the ability to do way more than anybody else does. And I'll just end the rant right there. It's not about any sort of identity stuff. It's just about consciousness and them affecting the way that we think on a paradigm level. That if we told our kids that they could solve our problems, our kids might actually do it. And maybe some of the industries and businesses don't want these problems to be solved. They don't want healing techniques and stuff like that to be out there because it's going to impact their bottom line. and they don't really care about anything else other than that. And I'll double in the rant there. Sorry for going on, but I had to get it out. We have the 13-year-old has eureka moment with science project that suggests Archimedes' invention was plausible.